ago, unnamed sources telling the Washington Post that dozens of people on the FBI terrorist watch list came to D.C. on the day of the riot inside the U.S. Capitol. We should note that the terrorist watch list is not the same as that no-fly list. Joining us now is one of the reporters who broke this story, Washington Post national security and law enforcement reporter Devlin Barrett. Devlin, great to have you with us. So tell us a little bit more about who some of these people are and how it appears that they were able to actually congregate in the same place. What have you learned?
Well, the terror watch list isn't actually designed to watch these folks at all times, or even much of the time. It's really about collecting data points about people for whom investigators have a concern that they could engage in violence at some point. And in this case, we're told most of these folks who are on the watch list who came to D.C. for these Trump events were suspected white supremacists. And so the government collects this information because they're very interested in when these folks travel. And that's generally the type of information that gets collected. So it's not that the system isn't really designed to sort of, for the folks on this list, keep them from traveling at all. It's designed to sort of let the government know where they are and when. And it worked in that sense, but they didn't act particularly aggressively on that information.
Yes, I was just going to ask you to elaborate a little bit about that, which is if they are on this terror watch list and they also have a separate no-fly list, was there, if you look at a Venn diagram, was there any part in the middle where some of these individuals from your reporting, have you learned if any of them traveled through, let's say, flying where they could have potentially been identified or picked up, or did they drive into D.C.?
Sure, but there's nothing in the system that's supposed to prevent them from traveling.
Right.
For folks on this terror watch list. Look, there's a bigger debate and conversation going on inside federal law enforcement about whether they need to be more aggressive in investigating and interacting with suspected white supremacists. One of the groups that we're told the FBI is looking at very, very hard right now is the Proud Boys, because they're concerned that some of those people may have played an organizing or participating role in violence. But we're still in the early days of the investigation, so they don't have a real answer to that question yet.
Have you had a chance to get any comment or response from the FBI? Has the FBI had anything to say about this reporting?
So the FBI hasn't commented. We're told by one U.S. official that, look, that they can't talk about who's on the terror watch list. It's a secret list, and it's secret for both security reasons and reasons of people's privacy, which is fair. But if you think back to the sort of the post 9/11 era when these lists were created and developed, there are limits to what they can do. And I think there's always a question of, does all this data collection end with better results? And obviously, I think that's a question that law enforcement officials are asking themselves now as they pursue all these cases.
And so to that point, looking ahead, inauguration a few days away, what could be the potential impact of this revelation as the country braces itself and as we continue to hear more warnings from law enforcement officials all across the country?
Well, look, first of all, D.C. is going to have an incredible amount of security, probably more security than an inauguration has ever had, which is saying something. There's a lot of concern that they can't cover every state capital the way they can cover Washington, D.C. And they don't have necessarily perfect information about, okay, people are talking online about conducting attacks. Where is that going to happen? When and how? Those are the unknowns here that scare and worry officials. But what's good is because of what happened last week, everyone's on high alert. Everyone's trying to figure out everything they can do to make these state houses and the nation's capital secure.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.